All right, I think we're going to try and get started. My name is Budge Courier. I'm not the chair, but since Robert couldn't be here in person, I thought I would help facilitate the meeting a little bit. So the first order will be welcome. So welcome to CalOES, those on the phone. Welcome. We're still trying to work through some of the audio issues, so if you can't hear, please let us know. The first order of business is a roll call. So those of you that are participating remotely, you've probably got a copy of the slide deck, so you can follow along. We're on item 1. All right, so we're going to keep moving through the roll call. So we'll get you that dial-in number just shortly, Robert. The next, going through the roll call, Mike Grant from Plumas County, the Northern Planning Area Chair. Can you hear us? All right, we can't hear you if you can hear us, so hold on. Mike, can you hear us? All right, we can't hear him. We can't hear him right now. Okay. All right, we'll work on that. Okay, Mike, so I know you're on. Weedy from Northern Planning Area couldn't be here today. She's not on the line. Andy Smith, I know he couldn't be here either. All right, Brent. Present. All right, Clay Smith is not here today, but representing Central Planning Area. We have a couple of new faces, so I thought we'd just let them introduce themselves. So I'll start with you, Mike.
Good morning. My name is David Sherrick, and I'm the representative for the Central Area Planning Committee and Merced County OES.
My name is Mike Perez. I'm representing Central Area, Merced County OES as well.
All right, and then in addition on the Central Planning Area, normally we have Clay Smith and Rebecca with us, but they've been trying to transition this out, so we're just getting the Central Planning Area up to speed. Thank you guys for being here. And then from the Southern Planning Area, I know Maddie couldn't be here today, but Derek is here. So Derek.
Yeah, Derek Gard, Southern Planning Area, Orange County Sheriff's Department.
All right, so let's see if we've got the audio issues worked out. So is Robert on there? All right, and Tom, I know Tom Lawless is on the phone. He's not a board member, but I want to make sure he can hear us. He's good? Okay. All right, and Robert, as soon as you get dialed into WebEx, let us know. All right, so we'll just keep moving forward. Hopefully we get Robert on the line. The next item on the agenda is the approval of previous minutes. So you've got a copy of the meeting minutes in front of you. If you were present at that meeting and you have any corrections, let us know. I think there's only a couple people in the room that were actually present during that, but does anybody see any issues with the meeting minutes? All right, so we have a motion to approve by Brent. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, Derek, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed? Hearing none. Those pass, and so we'll make sure that these get sent out electronically to the new members and to everybody so that you have a copy of those. All right, and if you see Robert dial in, please let me know, because I want to hold off till we get, I'd like for him to be on the line there. Hey, Robert, welcome. I'm assuming you can hear us. We're continuing with the agenda. We just looked at the previous meeting minutes, and now we're going to get into the planning area updates. So I'm glad you're on the line.
Okay. Yeah, you sound really good now.
Okay, perfect. We solved the technology problems. All right. Nice job, everybody. Okay, so sorry for the delay. So the next thing we'll do is we'll give planning area updates. We'll just go in the order that's on the slide here. The first one is Northern Planning Area. Mike, if you're online and you can give us an update, that'd be great.
So can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, so we had a meeting on March 21st. First meeting we've had in about, a long time. The campfire kind of fouled us up. We had some discussions about governance. I believe Weedy's going to be leaving and heading off to retirement by the end of the year. So we're looking for someone to fill in her slot, and actually got some interest from a lot of from people that have never been to any of our meetings before. So we're going to follow up with another meeting in July and move forward with that. Our TICP project took a huge step backwards because of the campfire and everything related to that, and it was Wheaties baby. So I think we're really close to having that all wrapped up and submit the stuff to the ICTAP folks and get that finished. We're definitely probably 4 to 6 months behind schedule, so trying to catch up. That's about all we have.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike from others, the other planning areas? Okay, so moving on to the Capital Bay planning area. Brent, you want to give an update?
Certainly. Our last meeting was on March 19th at the Alameda County EOC. It was an interesting meeting because there was a semi-truck rollover on I-580 near the Altamont Pass that everybody from the Sacramento area, including Budge and myself and a whole carloads of other people, got stuck for hours, and we never made it to the meeting. Luckily, we had set up the conference bridge, so most of the attendees, or at least half the attendees, were on the phone stuck in traffic. We weren't moving, so there wasn't any issues with being a conflict with driving. It was an awful morning. But anyway, we had a good meeting that Andy was there chairing the meeting at the EOC, and I was on the phone. We also discussed governance, a little bit about the charter. A lot of our conversation was regarding the TICP also and what was happening in the Bay Area, some discussion with San Mateo and what they were doing in terms of a TICP and some increased involvement that they've got going on. Paul Wilcox from Sacramento County talked about what's happening there. There was a common theme that I've heard in other meetings as well, and that is there has got to be more involvement and participation of law enforcement personnel in this process. So I don't know if that's going to come up again, but it's a common theme that I think that we're seeing in all of these meetings. I guess the last thing was that Budge did a great update from the car on what's going on, which I'm sure you'll hear the latest one here in a few minutes. This was followed by the MTUG, Motorola Trunk Users Group Committee, which helped with our participation and attendance. Cody Kerwin is the chair of that group, and we've been working together with him on co-locating those meetings. And there's an interest in continuing that. So I think that's all I've got.
All right, any questions from the other planning areas for that? All right, so moving on, we have central planning area. So I know both of you that you're new, this is your first meeting, so whatever update you might want to provide would be great. It's been a while since we've had representation here from the central planning area, so we appreciate it. So David,
Thank you. Our last meeting was April 18th. We held it at the Merced County EOC. Some of the key topics were we're working at our next phase of our interoperability XMD radio interface for all agencies. So we have an RFP out for that. Waiting to hear back. Hopefully we'll see that within the next 60 to 90 days. And then we have a lot of our dispatch centers looking, transitioning towards a text to 911 system. I think we have one up in testing. We have an application out to the FCC for all the PSAPs, waiting for approval on that. And then some other areas or other dispatch centers that are just waiting to get the modules integrated and some of the shape files and stuff taken care of so that they can start testing also. And that's it. That's all I have.
All right, any questions for the central planning area? All right. So hearing none, we'll move on to the southern planning area. Derek, if you want to give an update.
Okay, yeah, we had our last meeting in March or early April, and we're set up for the ITSL course, June 24th through 28th. at Loma Ridge in Orange County. Been reaching out to people, and participation interest is pretty good, I think. So we also have we're forming a planning meeting for the radio rodeo to try and get more participation for the whole SPA and get everybody involved in that, and try and broaden it out bigger than just a few counties. And also I introduced a interoperability matrix between all the counties of what you would do in case you need to communicate with somebody from another county for pursuits, and that's the Southern California National Pastime is vehicle pursuits. And so we're working on that, and finding that out, we've discovered, we've had a test and everything, are finding out that people who thought they had interoperability channels set up and everything are finding out that they didn't work, or PL tones weren't programmed properly or whatever. So it's been a good exercise to do some testing and find out that there were some issues in the communication system. Other than that, that is it for us.
All right, so any questions for the Southern Planning Area? All right, and really the purpose of these planning area updates is if you hear something like radio rodeo, you don't know what that is, then encourage you to reach out and get the details on what that event is, how it's coordinated, agencies involved, so that if there's something they're doing that seems like a good idea to implement in your planning area, you can do that without having to go through a bunch of formal steps. So really it's information sharing is the intent there. All right, so moving through I think I'm going to pause here because I want to give Robert Stoffel an update, an opportunity to provide an update from the chair's perspective. So Robert, do you have anything you want to add from your perspective before we move into some of the other agenda items?
I think the only thing I would add is that I have been a long proponent of interoperability. Those that know me know that. And so I just want to thank the co-chairs or the chairs and vice chairs of the different planning areas and offer my assistance, whatever we can do from the CalSIEC level, from the CalOES level. We want to be there to support you in your efforts with interoperability. Hearing some of the things that are going on, the interest from maybe participants who haven't been big with the planning areas in the past, the radio rodeos, the interoperability testing, that's all great stuff. And as we all know, we need to be able to communicate with each other. So I thank you for your continued efforts, and if there's anything that I can do to assist you, please don't hesitate to call.
All right. Anyone have any questions for Robert? Okay. Moving on to item number 4. This is an update on the EFog. So as you know, it's literally been, I think, 2 years ago, we started this process of trying to convert the Interoperability Field Operations Guide into an electronic version that could be accessed via an application on your phone. So this is very similar to the NIFOG application that you can download now, the National Interoperability Field Operations Guide. Same look, same feel, but just California data would be in there instead of the national data. So we finally got signatures on all the rules of use letters, the agreement, and we're ready to go. And we technically could start the project today. However, in talking to some of the planning areas, we know that there's some updates to the EFog that need to be done. So we're going to get those updates in and try and do a refresh on the EFog interoperability channels before we turn it into an electronic version. So what that'll do is when we publish that electronic version, it'll have the most up-to-date information possible. So you'll be seeing members of Shelley's team reaching out to you, as well as we're coordinating with Dave Meyer and the communications coordinators that are in each of the mutual aid regions throughout the state to try and get that data in. So if you know you've got updates to your operational area, please feed those into us. So if you remember, the EFog is organized, the beginning part of the document, I'd say the first 40 pages or so, are basically a statewide perspective. And then in the back of that document, each county operational area has their own page or pages that give a summary from perspective of your county. And in there is the, things like the 24/7, call number to be able to reach a dispatch center. And then the interoperability channels that are monitored in dispatch, and then the channels that you would like others to communicate with you on for interoperability purposes. That's really what that is. And so there's 58 of those in there, and then some of the state agencies have a one-pager as well. So that's the portion, that back portion is what we're asking, you to update. So you don't have to go through the whole document unless, because I think that the beginning part is probably dialed in pretty good. It's really just those operational area pages that we're looking at. So for the planning areas that are, each of the planning areas that are here, if you could help us get the word out and say, hey, someone from CalOES is going to be reaching out to you, and this is what you need to update, and it'll only, literally, it should only take about half an hour of effort to update that, and then get those back into us. And the points of contact that are in the slide deck and in the meeting notes, Sophia's in the room. She's the one who can help coordinate all those responses via her email. And the sooner we get this data in, the sooner we can get this published. And we'll have a drop dead date. I don't know if we've set it yet. We're still working through that. But once we do, and if we don't get the data, then it'll just be published as is.
We're shooting for it by end of May.
And
All the updates from all of our counties, and then we're gonna give that feedback information to Terry Coates, who's with DHS, who is in charge of the master document, and then she will make the updates.
all right, so that was Tim, who's in the Broadband Service Unit. So the end of May would be nice to have those updates by, and then feed them into Sophia, and then Sophia, we will push them off to Department of Homeland Security. The document will be updated, and then once we get it updated, we can turn it into this electronic version. And then they go through a process, a month or two, they say, we'll see what that looks like, for them to update it. And we really want to get this done before the next government shutdown, if it potentially happens. But I think really we have to get this done by September. Otherwise, you go into October, things get a little dicey again with the federal budget process. All right? So any questions on that before we move on?
Budge, will there be an opportunity for the planning areas to review that information or to assist other than sending out, a notice that they can expect something?
Yeah, if you want, what we can do is, as we get the planning areas all, as they come in for each planning area, we could take the counties in your planning area and send them to you as the chair and tell you, here's the ones we've received, and here they are, and here's the ones we haven't received. Can you help us out? So we can definitely do that. Yeah. All right, any other discussion on item 4? Okay, so hearing none, we'll move on to item 5. Item 5 is really just an update on all of our approved technical assistance requests. So for those of you that are newer to the process, each year the state of California submits 5 requests to the Department of Homeland Security, and they usually approve 3 or 4 of them. And then throughout the year, they may give us an extra one if others aren't responsive. So what's going to be on these next series of slides is an update of each of those technical assistance requests that were submitted and approved this past year. So the slides are all formatted the same. We wanted to make sure that you saw these because even if it doesn't apply to your planning area, you get a sense of the type of projects that are being approved and how they're being managed and how they work forward. Because what will happen soon, September timeframe, we're going to ask you for next year's technical assistance requests. So that's another reason why we wanted to get this overview in there. So the first one is working on an operational communications assessment. It'll be between us and the state of Nevada, really focused around the Tahoe Basin and the multiple fire districts that are there. And they are dispatched out of multiple sources now, and they don't really have this consolidated dispatch capability, yet they do have a consolidated response, obviously, in the Tahoe Basin. So they want to do, they asked for a study for DHS to come in and work with the various agencies that are up there. So North Tahoe Fire is taking the lead on this, Steve McNamara, and then Danielle Hughes, who's with the Tahoe Transportation Organization. They're leading the effort from the local level, and then Sophia is supporting the effort from our office. We had our initial meeting on this a couple weeks ago, and so this is moving forward. We're just in the initial planning stages as to what this would look like. So any questions about this first TA request? All right, so hearing none, we'll move on to the second request. This came to us from the Capitol Bay planning area to do a communications exercise. Originally, we thought we could piggyback on a command vehicle rally that was being held, but there's a long lead time required for DHS to respond. And so since that event already happened in April, we kind of missed the opportunity there. But Andy and Brent are leading this, and then LJ is helping them to coordinate this. And the idea will be to have this communications exercise sometime a little later in the year. I don't think we've ironed out a date yet, but we have a ComL class that's being sponsored in the central planning area. And so we want to make sure that the ComL class is completed before this event occurs, because if this is a ComEx in the Bay Area, the thought is some of those that are getting their ComL certification in the central planning area would then be able to attend this ComEx and get their task books signed off. So we're trying to coordinate those two efforts. So I don't know, Brent, if you have anything you want to add to this one. You're one of the leads on this, but is that pretty much where we're at?
We have had a preliminary discussion, but there's a lot of planning that needs to go into it.
Okay. So,
A lot of work ahead.
all right. Any other comments on the second request? All right. The third request, this is for an alert and warnings workshop. This did not come out of the 5 allocations we had for the state. This was kind of like an extra, like an add-on. And because of all the activities we're doing statewide with alert and warning, just to give you a very high-level overview of what we're doing, there was a there was law passed that Cal OES had to coordinate sort of a best practices guidance document and develop that by July of this year. That document is now out in draft version. If you want a copy of that, let us know. It was a huge collaborative effort. Multiple counties, cities, and state agencies participated in it. And then in addition to that, our Next Gen 911 RFP, which is out for bid right now, includes using the Next Gen 911 system as an alert and warning technology platform. So think interface to WIA and IPAWS, that would be supported. An interface to the California Earthquake Early Warning. Once an alert is generated there, the system would be able to send it out. And then all of your local alert and warning capabilities that you have, whether it's internal to your agency or whether it's countywide. So these are all the commercially provided solutions, whether it be Code Red or Nixle or Everbridge or whoever you're using. This common technology platform would support those as well. So it doesn't do anything about the local alerting authority. That authority still rests at the local level. But it really just provides a common technology platform. And because we have all the numbers in the Next Gen 911 system, one of your first steps when you deploy one of those local systems is you do a pull from the 911 system to get the phone numbers. Well, we'll already have those. That was the thought. This system will probably take 18 to 24 months to bring online. We won't start until contract award, which is probably July, August. But all that is happening, and so we thought the next step was, well, let's ask DHS to come in and help us walk through an alert and warning workshop. What are some things that we need to consider in both of those efforts from a technology perspective and best practices and training perspective? We had the kickoff this week. Hank O'Neill's in the crowd, I know is in the audience. He was there. I think we had one one other, yeah, Michael was there as well. And then others from CalOES were there. So that's what this one is about. Hank is leading up the effort from the technology perspective. And then Gabe, who's part of our CalOES operations directorate, he's really the one, best practices, rules of use, training kind of, that's the DMARC there. So this workshop is ongoing, and I want to see if there's anybody have any questions on that or feedback. Hank, anything you want to add?
Just that we expect to have it completed, the final product, I believe, our goal is by the end of August.
All right, so for those on the phone, the goal is to have the final product completed by the end of August. So that's the timeline, the deliverables from this workshop. Once we get something, we will present it at the next one of these meetings, so you at least have a high level of where we're at. But that project literally has just kicked off, and we're just starting.
Budge, can you clarify what it's meant by a workshop? Is this something that you're rolling out to op areas or regions throughout the state, that you're meeting with local governments and with CalOES and talking about this, or?
No, I think it would be, well, I don't know. Go ahead, Hank. Do you have a mic? You can step to the public comment one if you want, just so people on the phone can hear you.
Initially, we met with DHS and basically outlined the framework of what we're working towards. The next meeting is going to include local jurisdictions, so we can get their input as well. The ultimate product is going to be different modalities for a 4-hour training block, and it's basically for familiarization with the alert and warning guidelines. And the ultimate, maybe down the road, is going to be a credentialing for alert and warning.
Okay, I'm just trying to get in my head. San Joaquin County op area is right now working on alerts and warning. In fact, we've got a meeting scheduled either this Friday or next Friday that is going to be discussing a particular solution that's apparently sole source, grant funded, and they're moving forward. So I'm wondering, should they be waiting for this document before they move forward with what they're doing?
I think as far as the training goes, I'll definitely put Gabe in contact with the county and they can have a conversation. But as far as a system with the BCP going through for our system, they might want to wait. If we're going to deploy a common technology platform statewide, it may be best for them to hold off on a new platform for themselves.
Yeah, and the only caveat I would add is if there's a time-sensitive need at the county level to get this done sooner than 24 months from now, then we've built into the next-gen 911 solution the ability to whatever you develop at the county level could be uploaded into this system. So just if you are going to enter into contract, a year-to-year type scenario would probably be advised, because you may get something sooner at the local level, then assess this statewide solution. If it meets your needs, we can upload your information into it, validate it, test it, and if it does meet the needs, you could say, okay, thank you, contractor, you've been very helpful. We're ready to transition to something else.
The alternative is if they delayed it enough to know what our common platform was, and then they went out and obtained it earlier with their own funds, potentially, at least a platform would still match.
Yeah. And we'll have the details on what our common platform is August timeframe, unless something goes sideways in the procurement.
So for my op area, I think we just need to make sure that whoever at the county is taking the lead on this project is aware of what you're doing, so I can share information.
Understood. We'll make sure that Gabe gets out to all the counties to make them aware sooner rather than later of what's going on.
Yeah, because I think they are pushing forward and trying to fast track it because of our fragility with not having much to
Right.
do an alert.
Yeah, and
warning
that's
right
what I
now.
mean by the timeline. So, and we've tried to write it in such a way that, you know, whatever is done at the local level can be integrated into this solution when the timing is right. Yeah. All right, any other discussion on the alert and warnings workshop? All right, so moving on to the fourth request. I've already alluded to this. Last year, we submitted for a COML class in the central planning area. It wasn't approved, so we put it back in this year, and it was approved. So Clay and Rebecca, I think, are serving as the lead. Have you want to give an update on that? Pass her down the mic there. So Shelley is going to give an update. So Sophia is the main point of contact, and Shelley's the supervisor over that unit. So you want to let them know where they are on this one.
Yes, so Jolene from DHS contacted myself as well as Clay Smith and Rebecca, and they're gonna get together and work on some dates and a location. So we're still just working out the logistics of when and where. The course will be open to up to 30 people, and we're hoping to get it in sometime this summer. DHS needs at least 30 days planning out. So I'll touch base with them this week to find out if they've come up with a date and time, and I'll pass that information on, similar to the flyer that was sent out for the ITSL courses, and I'll let you guys know.
And then we can loop you in too, so that if you have a location and a date,
Yeah.
might make it easier for them. If you say, hey, look, I've got a location and a date, does this work
Well,
for you?
well,
They may then say, yes, that works.
Clay did say he was looking at somewhere in Hanford area, but again, I don't have the exact location and date.
Okay, and we do have a facility we could offer up, and
Awesome.
so if need be,
Okay.
we'll work on that coordination.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Moving on to the fifth request. Again, I've already talked to this a little bit as well. We're going to be updating the data in the CalIFOG, and we're going to be reaching out to the counties. We've learned that it's 30 minutes of time we're asking for folks, and if we give you a month, then you'll give us the 30 minutes on the 30th day from when we request it. So it's just a matter of when that 30 minutes is going to happen. So we might as well ask for a very quick turnaround and hear the grumblings and complaining that we have a short turnaround, rather than set it 60 days out, and now that final 30 minutes on the 60th day is when you do it. So this effort has began. What we'll do, when we send out a notification, we'll make sure that we carbon copy the planning area chairs, so at least know that the request has gone out for your area. And then we'll develop a status of who we've heard from and where the information is at, so you know which data is current. And again, it's literally just focusing on, what do I need to know from an interoperability perspective if I'm going to respond into a county for help? That way we have a document. These have been, invaluable when these large fires and other disasters break out, and you literally have, minutes to get data to somebody that's en route so that they can help coordinate the response. All right, and
It's Mike Grant. I got a question.
yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So this kind of came up at our last NPAC meeting, and a lot of the new folks in the room that have taken over from people that have moved on to other things didn't even realize there was an EFog out there. We didn't have the level of discussion you just brought up, but we did mention that it was going to be updated, and they wanted to know what that document looked like. So when you just said to give everybody some time to the end of the month to make sure that what's in the current EFog is correct, or if it needs to be changed, we need something for them to refer to. And I know that, at least in my case, I only have about 4 of them left, the old printed ones, to send out. I guess I could photocopy pages, or do you have that electronically where we could give each operational area what was in the old EFog to see if that matches up to what they want to do now, or if they need changes?
Yes, we have it electronically, and that way you don't have to send the whole document out, because we're really just focused on their particular operational area. So we could definitely do that. We have it in a Word
Yeah,
document.
I think that would be a good way to do it, instead of having them get absorbed in the whole thing.
Right, and then they don't have to go through 200 pages of a document. There's just literally the 5 or 6 or 2 pages that applies to their operational area. So we can do that. We've already got the document electronic version. It's easy to break it out that way.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any other feedback on that one? Is this a really important effort for us? All right, so hearing none. Moving on to additional TA offerings that were part of this. One of these has already been mentioned, the Information Technology Service Leader Training Course. So in your packet, there's a summary sheet of what this is and the flyers and the 2 events. And for those on the phone, I'm assuming you have a digital version of this as well. So one of them will be held in Concord on the 15th through the 19th of July. And the other one will be in Silverado, California on the 24th to the 28th of June. And there are some pretty, there's some very specific requirements you need to have to qualify for this course. Of everything on the list, most of the things on here, ICS 100, 200, 700, 800, those are online courses, so it's pretty easy to get through. But ICS 300 is an in-person class, so that's probably the one that has a little bit longer lead time. Pretty much if you don't have it yet or not enrolled in a class, you're probably not going to get it done by the time of these courses. But and then the other thing is there's some network layer 1 and layer 2 stuff. So it's just some of the fundamentals of IP subnetting and network terminology, terms, how those things work. It would be very helpful to have a background of those. And then the ICS 400 class. So go ahead, Brett.
But just might mention that I had seen this recommendation for the network layer 1 and 2 troubleshooting, and I'm not an IT person, but I decided to take it just to see how well I would do with it. And it was actually really interesting. It was about 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours to do the whole thing. It's all video presentation, and then there's a 20-question exam at the end of it. I thought it was done really well, and I learned a lot, and I would really encourage anybody that wants to know more about IT, and especially, this is pretty basic stuff about troubleshooting, talking about doing like the physical layer first, making sure your cables are connected before you start worrying about your IP addresses, right? So it was really good, and I just might mention that they get high marks for the way they did this.
All right, so that's some good feedback. And it just is so that you don't go into the course with no baseline, is really the intent of that. And the effort is focused around, we're seeing an increased reliance on information technology and technology solutions that are used down at the incident level in an incident command post, and just having somebody who has the skill set to coordinate all those various data feeds and data connections that exist in today's world as we do incident response. And that's really what this course is focused around. There's been a couple of beta offerings of the course. There's been a lot of feedback and updates to the course. So I think it's a really good course. Definitely recommend it for those that are going to be responding to incidents. So that's really the first 2 items on slide 11 here. And then at the bottom, the Incident Tactical Dispatch Training course. We're planning for one of those in the Sacramento area. Jamie Hudson out of Elk Grove is the lead on that one. And what this is if you've heard of TERT, the Tactical Emergency Resource, TERT, Tactical Emergency Resource Team or Response Team, I think it is. So essentially, when there's an incident and you need additional staffing in your PSAP, that TERT is the resource you can go to that. Now, we know there's limitations, like they need to be familiar with my CAD and maybe my call handling solution, but they have a way in the way that they're tracking this to go ahead and keep track of who's in TERT and what skill sets they have. We used this during the campfire, and we were able to pull some resources up into the Butte County SO's dispatch center that had, they'd never been in that center before, but they were familiar with their CAD, the computer-aided dispatch. They were familiar with their 911 call answering system. And literally within 30 minutes, they were taking live 911 calls of walking in the front door. So it's a very successful program, and this is what this next one is focused around. And we're just in the initial planning stages of that one as well. And I don't know, Shelley, you want to give an update on that?
Jamie to discuss the logistics of when and where this class will be held. So hopefully soon we'll have some information on that as well.
Yeah, just to help you understand how these TA requests work, toward the end of this year, probably September timeframe, we'll make a request to you all for ideas for next year's session. And then we record planning area, point of contact, what it is, and then we submit it off to DHS. And Tom Lawless is on the phone, so he's the one who helps coordinate those. It usually takes them a month or two to get the approvals in place and see who's awarded what based on resources they have at the federal level. Once they're approved, the next step is we, CalOES, reach out to whoever the lead agency was, whichever planning area, and we have a scoping call where we walk through, okay, here's the logistics, here's who's involved, here's the timeline. And then at that point, CalOES, we typically back away because it's your technical assistance request, not ours. But we'll help facilitate if you need it. So you can either continue to use us for administrative support or whatever, or you just own it, take care of it, and make it happen down at the local level. So that scoping call is one of the, it's really the handoff point because we need the local input in order to make this happen. So that's how this process works. All right. Okay, any other questions or comments on that one? All right.
Budge, this is Tom. I've got a few pieces on technical assistance, if I can have a minute.
1 minute. We're setting the timer, Tom. We know you.
Okay, well, I talk fast then. I missed part of what Shelley mentioned there. I imagine she might have mentioned that we at 10 o'clock had our scoping call for tactical dispatch. Just to mention, incident tactical dispatch is not just TERT. TERT is one part of it. Tactical dispatch has a lot to do with taking our day-to-day dispatchers who are used to their very structured environment and actually getting them out to the field, understanding a little bit of what the ICS world is like. Coming from the SWAT world, we use tactical dispatchers who, when we asked for the 40 Mike or ferret rounds to come up, because they were trained in our environment, they would help maintain it and kind of keep stuff like that moving. A couple of things to hit real quick. To Brett's point much earlier about LE not being as involved in ComU, ComL, ComT, I do have a request coming through. I sent it through Maddie through Southern Planning Area. LA Sheriff's Department is looking for 15 folks to go through a ComL. I'm also going to see if I can use, if there's any wiggle room out of DC, see if I can get that as a direct support potentially, just because we do have such a lack of LE folks really involved in ComU. So I'll let you guys know we may have a ComL going into LA. Another thing, my last thing here real quick is I've seen the draft GAO Teaband report, and it is awesome. It is relatively concise for a government report, and it basically comes out and says public safety has no place to go from Teaband, and the FCC has actually come out and said that even if they held the auctions would fail. So really waiting for that document to get out of draft and get up to the Hill, and once that's out of draft, I'll send you folks a copy. Thank you.
All right, and for those that are not familiar with Teaband, this really affects, there's a few counties in the Bay Area who are pretty heavy Teaband, and obviously LA is probably the other heavy Teaband user in the state. So 6-7 years ago, they first started talking about moving public safety users off of Teaband, and there's been delay after delay after delay, and so hopefully they come to their senses and don't make them move off Teaband. That would actually be fantastic news. All right, so if you've got Teaband users, you may want to let them be aware. Typically, after something like this comes out, the FCC will do a notice to file comments or something, and those big users will probably want to be watching that. Go ahead, John, if you want to.
I was just going to say that. Give me a mic so that the world can hear. The Teaband legislation was part of the broadband legislation that established FirstNet. There are other discussions going on about the business band users in the T-band, relocating them. That's been a kind of a sticking point. Well, if you move public safety out of T-band, you still can't use the spectrum because you've got all these slivers of business users in it. Now there's some discussion about moving those users out of the band as well and opening it back up for the broadcast industry. So that's one concern that we're kind of keeping an eye on. Whatever happens, the FCC's hands are tied because this is something that came through Congress. So any solution has to be a congressional solution. So regardless of what the FCC would like to do, Congress is still in control of what ultimately happens. So.
All right, any other questions on T-band? Or any of the other items we just talked about? All right, so the next one up, item 6 on the agenda, is the communication unit position credentialing. So we formed a working group, which was a subset of the CalSIEC, to take a look at the process that needs to be in place to formally recognize at the state level those that have been through ComL training and have their task books signed off, ComT, RADO, and all the other positions within the communications unit for credentialing purposes. And we developed a document. The document's available to anybody on the board. Most of you probably already have a copy. We took that document and we want to fold it into the CalOES credentialing system. So I initially reached out to who I thought in CalOES was coordinating this, and they referred me to somebody else who I've now followed up with. As a matter of fact, this morning, I finally got a call back on that. And now I think I know the right person. So the idea would be to not reinvent the wheel, to use an existing process that's already in place within CalOES, to simply just recognize the work that this group is already doing with credentialing. And so we think that's how that's going to work. I'll meet with Kevin Lefisher is his name. He's with the California CSTI, California State Training Institute, who oversees the credentialing process. So I'll meet with them and figure out what we need to do in order to cross that next step. And once we do that, we're ready. We're ready to move forward. Probably, we would have to stand up a permanent working group to oversee this process as identified in the charter, and then they just feed back into the already existing OES process is how we think it'll work. So this is really working well. And then I know that, Brent, you were going to bring this up at Firescope, and other groups may be discussing this. I have not heard any negative feedback at all. I mean, I've just heard positive feedback. So I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything to that or have any questions.
We did bring it up at Firescope. There was a couple of questions after the meeting. All the comments that I've gotten also have been positive. All of the feedback has been directed towards LJ to compile. So I don't know if she has some sort of report on how much feedback, if any, that she's getting. About 0, huh?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes no news is good news, right?
That the word is just really kind of getting out. I saw your email to Jamie, and I think that's really the first big direct contact we've had. So I haven't heard from anybody else yet.
All right, so it seems like we're, in the absence of not being told no, we'll just keep moving forward. Okay, so that's good. That's taken 10 years to put in place. I think this was originally tried 10 years ago. Robert, who's on the line, he probably remembers the pain and suffering and this went through the first time it was tried. All right. The next item 7, we just wanted to get the word out for those of you that develop code plugs and that coordinate interoperability. We approved a couple of statewide travel channels. So the idea was before the 700 meg interop channels are impacted or allocated at the local level, We wanted to take a couple of the channels and use them for statewide travel channels. So the idea would be you've got a direct channel that you can use for your strike team, task force, whatever it is, when you leave your operational area and you're en route to the staging area for the incident. These are not repeated channels. They're literally direct mode channels. And everything you would need to be able to program that into your radios is on this slide. There's the NAC code and how you would program the mode in your radios. And these are the 700 meg P25 interop channels that are not only in the California EFog, but they're also in the national EFog as well. So get the word out and put them in your code plug so that they can start to be used. Go ahead, Brent.
There was discussion about this at the FireScope Communications Specialist Group as well. They were the ones that actually started this, initiated the process some months ago. The questions surrounded the channel name because it doesn't say specifically in here, and remember I said, Budge, there will be questions. Let's try to get this right the first time. The only questions that came up was, can we name them something other than the 7 data 69D or 7 data 89D? And I know it was our intent from CalSIEC.
I have an answer to that. The answer is no.
Absolutely. And we reinforced that at FireScope, so everybody's loud and clear on that message.
Yeah. And it's a really good question, really, if you think about it, because the name is not that descriptive. But the name is set based on the NIPSTIC naming guide that's been put for all the interoperability channels. So we want to be consistent, so that when Tom shows up with his federal radio with 2,000 interop channels in it, and we tell him, look, we're on 7 data 69D, Tom goes, oh, that's in zone 12, channel 82. Shh, boom, there he goes. Where if we name it some California name, those that respond from somewhere else would never be able to find the channel on their radio. So that's really why we want to use the common naming conventions. Yeah, they can come up with a clever acronym for data if it makes them feel better. All right, any other thoughts or discussion on item 7? All right, the next item is a summary of where we're at with broadband. And so I've got a couple of bullet points in here. I'm not going to talk a long time on this, but I want to encourage questions. So if you have any questions. So those of you that are newer to the group, CalOES, we oversee, obviously, emergency management for the state, and within that, we have public safety communications, where we oversee the radio systems for all the state agencies, and then we oversee the statewide microwave network, and we have that piece, and then in addition, I run the 911 communications branch, and part of that role, not only running the 911 system, but is also coordinating broadband rollout, or FirstNet, and other solutions that are related to that, whether it's Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, or whatever. They're all coordinated through that group. Shelley is the supervisor over that unit. So we are coordinating the deployment of FirstNet. We've been continuing to work with AT&T to make sure that what they promised us in a contract, well, in a letter, I guess would be the better way, that those are being met, and we've reached out to stakeholders to get input from, all of you on how this is working for you at the local level, what concerns you may have, and all the details. Tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, the California First Responders Network Board, or CalFriend Board, is meeting, and there's going to be a 2-hour discussion on this. It's a WebEx event. You can listen in and get a full update. So, we definitely are willing to share all the information. We don't want to duplicate that meeting that we're going to have today. But we're also working, as I said, it's not just AT&T and FirstNet. We're also working with all the other providers. We've been in contract negotiations for the last 6 months, working with the Department of Technology to get contracts in place on CalNet for Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, and others, all right? So we're working on all of that. And we expect sometime soon that contract will be signed. I thought it would really be in April, but it probably looks like it's going to be sometime this month in May. So what we've done for the state is we've broken the state out into groups of counties and then assigned those groups to members of Shelley's team to help coordinate any questions you might have related to broadband services. And most of those folks are in the room. LJ is in the back there. Tim is in the front, although he just got promoted. He's going to be moving to another unit. Sophia's here, and Michael Elder is here. So with that, I'll entertain questions, any conversation you want to have surrounding broadband. All right, there's none in the room. Anybody on the phone?
So, Budge, it's Mike Grant. I got a couple of things. We have a full-scale exercise we're doing in a couple of weeks, and we had reached out to AT&T to see if they wanted to kind of display what they have or maybe provide devices that we could use. And they only wanted to do that under kind of their terms, and that was putting up a bunch of portable cell towers that would give us coverage that we wouldn't typically have. And so we kind of pushed back on that a little bit, and conversation seemed to drop. And then interestingly enough, the Verizon guy, who in our agency, we primarily use Verizon, they have much more coverage here, contacted us and really said a lot of the things that AT&T currently has, they have available as well. So I found that kind of interesting, and the price points are virtually the same. Is the state doing any testing or anything with Verizon to see how well they pair up with AT&T and offering broadband for public safety?
Yeah, so great question, Mike. So yes, we are doing some testing. At one point, the California Public Utilities Commission was under a grant program to go out and actively test throughout the state. So if you want access to broadband throughputs statewide, there's a dated map that's out there. Their grant has expired. They're no longer actively testing. But if you want to get a kind of a baseline of where we were, I think the map was current through the end of 2017. But we, CalOES, have access to that suite of devices that they use for the testing and the application. And so Hank, who's in the room, and several other members of Shelley's team has participated in that testing. So we can help you with testing if you'd like. We have that ability.
So for me, it was more that is Verizon actually giving the preemption and priority, which is, you know, kind of the big thing when a big event occurs, like AT&T apparently is able to do, although we can't seem to get a demo of that until we have portable cell towers to do it. But anyways, I was just curious if the state was going to go down that road to see if other carriers, and I only happen to know of Verizon. I did talk with T-Mobile. They said they're going to roll out something similar as well. And is somebody going to test that at the state level to see if preemption and priority works the same or at an acceptable level in comparison to what AT&T is doing?
So yes, Mike, that is something we're doing. So what we found is that we need to find an event where there are not portable resources deployed in order to really test this. Because I don't know about you, unless you have a crystal ball, for an unplanned event, you're not going to be able to roll out portable resources in any kind of way to support the event. So we need an unplanned event or a planned event that doesn't have portable resources, where the network is saturated to the point that we can actually go do testing. So we did this during Fleet Week. The city of San Jose, city of San Francisco did some testing during Fleet Week to test priority and preemption, and the official word was the user experience was not what was expected with AT&T. In layman's terms, that means it didn't work. It didn't, there was no noticeable difference on your device. So if you've got an event that's going on and you would like us to come validate that priority and preemption are working on whatever carrier it is, reach out to us. That's the kind of thing we can do. And we've been told the same thing, Mike, that the other carriers are going to offer a similar solution with priority and preemption.
Yeah, and I think you touched on my concern. The salespeople tell you what you want to hear, but then how does it actually work when you get it? So it always seems to be a little bit different than the salesperson sells you or tries to sell you in everything, not just cell phones. So it's a big deal for the small counties in the northern area to make a commitment to going one way or the other because of cost. And then, it'd be nice to have some baseline, whether it actually works as advertised or maybe even close to as advertised.
Yeah, we definitely agree, Mike. And that's where, when you've got these events going on, and if you want our help in doing the testing, we're happy to do that because we don't necessarily know all these events are going on.
Sure. That's it.
Okay. Anyone else on the phone want to comment? All right. So the next one is just a reminder on when our next meetings are. What we've tried to do at Cal OES is we have multiple board meetings that we set up for. You see this is a new format today from the way we've been doing it. It facilitates public interaction more, although there's not very many members from the public present, but that's fine. It is a public meeting. So these dates coincide with the 911 Advisory Board and the Long Range Planning Committee that's part of the 911 Advisory Board and the California First Responders Network Board. They're all on either the day before or the day after these meetings. So take a look at your calendars for August 20th and November 19th to make sure those dates work for you. We're not locked into these dates. We can change them, but we'd need to know soon because we book rooms and, do all of that in support of this. So those are the next meetings. And then I want to solicit your input on other agenda items. So, Robert, I guess I'll start with you as the chair. Is there anything that you think we should be talking about that we did not talk about today?
I don't know if I have anything else today specifically other than on the agenda that I received, item 7 was titled Use of VHF CalCord by the U.S. Coast Guard tower sites. Is that something that we want to be talking about today or save it for another meeting?
This is today's agenda, and he is right. Item 7 does say VHF CalCord by U.S. Coast Guard towers. I thought we had already discussed that at a previous meeting.
Yeah,
We did, and you sent out
we
an email
discussed
on
it, but
that.
I think there was a lot of questions about what exactly they were looking for, so I didn't know if this was an update to that.
It's not. We don't have any extra data, so you're exactly right. So we will follow up with you on that agenda item because I don't have any additional information today. Good catch.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. All right. Anybody else have any agenda items they want to make sure that we get in the hopper for the next meeting? All right. So our meeting, we have to put together the agenda and get it vetted through the chain of command at least 6 weeks prior to the meeting. So if you do have agenda items, by the beginning of July, we would need to hear about them. If you just follow the timelines of what we're required to do. And literally the agenda is posted 10 days prior. So if it's an emergency type thing that you want to make sure we get on the agenda, if I don't hear it before August 10th, it definitely can't be on it. That's the actual drop dead because it's a public meeting. We've got to publish the agenda 10 days prior. So best case, if you think of something you want to add to the agenda, reach out to us prior to July or in the beginning of July. And then if it's an emergency type thing where we absolutely have to get it on an agenda, August 10th is the last date that I can do that. All right? And you can email those agenda items to Sophia. She's the one who helps put together the agenda. And then I'm supposed to review it, which obviously I didn't do very well looking at item 7. Yeah, All right. So the next item up.
Hey, come on, Bud, you got all the others right.
That's pretty good, right? Is that a passing grade? I think it's like an 80-some. It's like a B+. Oh, that's great.
You did.
Yeah, I mean,
You
yeah,
did
that's
well.
better than normal. All you need is a C to get a degree. Okay, so the last item up is public comment. So if there's anyone in the room that has a comment or anyone else on the board that has anything they want to bring up, even you, Tom, now's the time. All right, hearing none. Next item is adjourned, so is there a motion? All right, I have a motion to adjourn. I have a second? All right, any opposed? All right, hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.